Discover the incredible truth behind NYX, 7 surprising myths of the night goddess revealed. On a dreary Tuesday evening, Sarah sat in her cluttered classroom, staring at the blank faces of her students. They were checked out, scrolling through their phones instead of engaging with the rich tapestries of ancient mythology she tried to weave into their lives. A dull ache gripped her chest. It wasn't just their disinterest that stung. It was the gnawing fear that she would always be overshadowed by others' expectations. Why couldn't they see the beauty in the stories she shared? Every eye roll and half-hearted question felt like a blow to her dreams, leaving her feeling isolated in a world that valued practicality over creativity. She closed her eyes, battling thoughts of doubt that reeled through her mind, like an unwanted echo of her father's voice. "You need a real job, Sarah." Her heart heavy with disappointment, she fled to the old bookstore nestled on the corner of Maple Street. The air was soaked in nostalgia. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books, searching for comfort in their embrace. It was there, beneath the creaking floorboards, that she discovered a weathered manuscript, its pages softened by time. The Myths of NYX, it read, a title that resonated deep within her. NYX, the Greek goddess of the night, a figure who commanded power and magic. Could she draw parallels to her own experiences? Before she knew it, Sarah was lost in tales about NYX's resilience and defiance against societal norms. Her fingers trembled as she turned the fragile pages, finding herself drawn into the stories of women who broke shackles, who questioned their fate, much like her grandmother, a fiercely independent anthropologist who vanished while pursuing the truth. That missing legacy whispered through the walls of her mind, mingling with her frustrations. Could it be that she inherited not just her grandmother's curiosity, but her tenacity as well? The next day in class, buoyed by urgency, Sarah boldly infused the essence of NYX into her curriculum. "Why do stories matter?" she asked, her voice echoing with newfound fervor. For a moment, the classroom fell silent. Then, like a dam bursting, students erupted with opinions about relevance and identity, challenging each other in a way she had longed to see. But her triumph was bittersweet. As the debates grew heated, a gnawing sensation clutched her gut. What would her father say? His disapproving gaze loomed large as she engaged in the one thing she was passionate about. She felt the pull of familial expectations weigh upon her, threatening to unravel her newfound voice. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As the weeks unfolded, Sarah dove deeper into NYX's lore, embracing the defiance embedded within the myths. She envisioned herself standing side by side with those powerful women, yet an insidious dread crept in, the fear of failure, of disappointing everyone who mattered, gnawed at her spirit. During a school board meeting, a respected member criticized her methods, questioning the validity of her approach. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, breath hitching, as she locked eyes with her father in the audience. The chasm between his expectations and her passion widened. Would she conform and just make it, or risk everything to maintain her truth? With her heart racing, she felt the weight of her grandmother's unfinished journey pressing down on her. The moment hung heavy in the air, fragile and full of tension. For what seemed like an eternity, she stood at the precipice of self-doubt, her voice poised to either rise or falter. Would she dare to face the shadows of her past and the uncertainties of her future? The room bristled with anticipation, all eyes on her, as the decision loomed to alter not just her path but the lives of those who believed in her. In the charged silence that followed, Sarah's mind raced. Adrenaline coursed through her like wildfire, igniting a flicker of defiance that challenged the grip of doubt. She didn't just want to maintain her truth. She felt the weight of responsibility to her students, to open doors for them that she herself struggled to even glimpse. The narratives she championed weren't merely tales, they were conduits for discovery, empowering their lives beyond textbooks and numerals. What if she murmured, testing the waters of her conviction. What if we embrace the unknown, the uncomfortable? What if we discuss NYX not just as a myth but as a force of understanding our own darkness? A hesitant murmur spread through the boardroom, a cadre of faces ranging from skepticism to intrigue. Yet, one voice rose above the rest, a booming proclamation from the critic. Students need facts, Sarah, not fairy tales. You're confusing them. The words felt like stones thrown at her burgeoning confidence, but she steadied herself, remembering how NYX navigated the realms of chaos, transforming shadows into strength. It wasn't about abandoning reality, it was about bringing students face to face with their own truths. Taking a deep breath, Sarah squared her shoulders, drawing from an inner wellspring of determination. But what if the facts are not enough to equip them for the complexities of life? Stories shape our understanding of who we are and who we can be. Learning doesn't only happen from conventional approaches. A ripple of whispers darted through the room, students and fellow educators alike exchanging glances, potentially warming to her argument. Her father's eyes bore into her, a mix of disappointment and cautious curiosity. But as the tension simmered in the air, a small ember of hope ignited. They were hearing her, they were questioning, engaging, possibly even beginning to understand. She held their gaze, steadied by the resolute spirit of NYX, and reminded herself that navigating shadows was merely part of this journey. Yet, the meeting ended unceremoniously, an unresolved debate similar to her life's fragmentation. As she exited the building, unease coiled tightly in her gut. She had dared to speak her truth, but the outcome was ambiguous. What if her father's disapproval stemmed deeper than mere concerns for her career? Perhaps it was rooted in a longing for her to fit a mold he valued. In the quiet of her home, clarity settled like dust. Battered but unbroken, she opened the manuscript she had found so many nights ago. The lessons of NYX now felt like a personal guide. Each page turned revealed not just the myths, but the characters' evolution, their strategies for confronting demons both literal and metaphorical. That night, as she poured her thoughts onto paper, inspiration surged anew. Each word was a tether to hundreds of years of women carving their own paths, against all odds. She began crafting a proposal for a new teaching curriculum focused on mythology's relevance to personal and societal identity, aiming for school board approval once again. Making the choice to fuse personal development with classical education was frightening, but the rush of possibility drowned out the echoes of anxiety. Perhaps she was not just a teacher clinging to a dream but an agent of change, as potent as the very tales she revered. The next morning, determined and invigorated, Sarah marched into her classroom. She guided the lesson effortlessly, igniting discussions that flared with raw energy. Everyone, the students, the silent specters of familial expectations, felt it, an awakening occurring in real time. This felt right, yet her heart still wrestled with the weight of her father's disappointment. As the bell rang, ending an exhilarating class, Sarah slipped into the hallway where she would find him waiting. Would she be able to speak her truth once more, standing tall in the face of his expectations? The moment of confrontation loomed ahead, the air thick with impending revelation. Would she articulate her identity, free from the confines of expectation? Taking a deep breath, she prepared to face him, her heart aligned with NYX's resolve, ready to redefine her course. As Sarah stepped into the hallway, each footfall felt like a drumbeat echoing the weight of her convictions. Anticipation pulsed through her veins, mingling with the lingering shadows her father represented. She scanned the corridor, the buzz of students rushing past her, voices fading into indistinct murmurs. Yet, amidst all that noise, her focus narrowed solely on the man waiting at the far end, a figure that embodied the constant wrestling match of her identity. He stood with his arms crossed, the lines on his forehead deepening as he spotted her. Sarah's stomach knotted. She fought the urge to turn back, to seek refuge in the familiar chatter of her classroom. But NYX's resolve steadied her, a reminder that confronting darkness could, paradoxically, lead to illumination. "Dad," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. He gestured for her to come closer. The distance felt monumental, representing years of expectations and disapproval. She advanced, swallowing hard, the words she longed to express clawing at the edges of her mind. "Sarah," he said, his tone weighed down with concern. "I just don't understand. Why mythology? Why now?" Deep inside, her frustration surged. The same questions had echoed in her own thoughts, twisting her resolve. Yet, she sensed she was ready to articulate an argument that transcended her desire for approval. "Because it's not just about stories, Dad. It's about understanding ourselves, our fears, our complexities. Mythology helps us navigate our own journeys," she countered, emphasizing every word with the fervor of belief that had ignited within her. His posture shifted slightly, though the skepticism remained etched in his features. "But the students don't need to delve into legends when they need to learn basic facts and figures. What will you do for them in the end?" The question pierced her gut. Facts mattered, but she believed that framing them within narratives grounded learning in deeper understanding. "What if I can offer them both?" She paused, weighing her next words as they hung in the air like a pendulum. "I want to teach them to explore their shadows, Dad. Life is complex. Students face real struggles. Maybe through mythology, they can find the strength to face their adversities." His silence spoke volumes, yet the disappointment in his eyes flickered with something else: curiosity, perhaps even the hint that he was reconsidering whether her approach could bear fruit. The tension of expectation was palpable, almost suffocating, but intertwined within it, she felt resolve crystallizing like a shield around her. "Learning isn't one-dimensional," she continued, voice unfaltering. "I aim for a curriculum that connects myths to real-world decisions, to help them forge their identity. They need to know that their stories matter." An imperceptible shift crossed his face. Was he beginning to see? "But who are you to guide them on those paths?" The question, while sharp, bore the weight of a personal inquiry. Could she really be that guide? A torrent of doubt surged within, yet she drew upon the strength of every woman who had dared to break convention before her. "I'm someone who is walking through those shadows, too. I'm still finding myself," she said earnestly. "But if I can inspire just one student to embrace their complexities, isn't that worth the risk?" The moment hung between them, defined by the potential for change that danced at its edges. Would he accept this new identity she was forging? Could he see her as more than just his daughter, but as a catalyst for others' growth? The question lingered, aching for resolution. "Sarah," he began but faltered, searching for the right words. A flicker of hope ignited within her. If he could at least acknowledge her journey, perhaps they could find common ground in that labyrinth of shadows. Before she could respond, a figure brushed past her, one of her students, a bright-eyed girl named Mia, clutching a stack of textbooks. "Miss Turner. You won't believe the connections we've made in class." The excitement in her voice cut through the tension enveloping the hallway. Turning toward Mia, Sarah felt a fresh wave of purpose wash over her. Moments like these cemented her resolve. She wasn't just reshaping her identity. She was reimagining her students' futures as well. As the student hurried off, Sarah realized the ultimate test was still ahead. She needed to implement her vision without losing herself to familial expectations or the shadow of doubt that lingered behind her father's disapproval. "This isn't just my fight," she thought, steeling herself. "It's theirs too." With her heart still racing, she turned back to her father. "Can we keep talking? I want you to understand why this matters so much to me." He met her gaze, a flicker of intrigue sparking in his eyes. "I suppose we could see where this goes." And in that single phrase hung the promise of future discussions, challenges, perhaps even growth, a hint that he might step beyond the boundaries of his expectations. Yet as they began to navigate their conversation, Sarah was reminded how precarious every conversation could be. Would the clarity she found last beyond this moment? Would she maintain the courage to guide her students, even if it meant forging a new path without his full support? The exploration had only just begun, and her heartbeat quickened with the realization that the true test lay ahead. Would she venture into that space of uncertainty, illuminated by the tales of NYX that inspired her? As Sarah resumed her conversation with her father, the world around them faded slightly. The hallway, bustling with life, transformed into a confining space with walls closing in on her courage. She inwardly cringed at the familiar sensation, the weight of his scrutiny pressing against her resolve, reminding her of every moment she had ever clashed with his expectations. "Dad, teaching mythology isn't just about reciting ancient tales, it's about grappling with profound questions," she reiterated, her voice maintaining a steadiness that masked the whirlwind inside her. "I want my students to explore their own narratives. Myths and legends reveal our fears, our strengths." He leaned back against the wall, arms still crossed defensively, yet a crease of intrigue appeared on his brow. "What makes you think your students want that?" "They're focused on grades, not on the philosophical debates of the ancients." Sarah's heart sank momentarily, the familiar flicker of self-doubt igniting. She clenched her fists, summoning the resolve built from the conversations she had had with her students. Unwavering, she pressed on. "That's just it, Dad. They're not just students, they're individual stories waiting to unfold, stories shaped by everything they face daily. This isn't merely an academic exercise, it's essential for their growth." The discomfort in her father's expression deepened, and for a fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of uncertainty. "Maybe you're right," he sighed, but quickly added, "Yet, will they understand it? Will you be able to guide them through such complexity?" The challenge stung, a reminder that she still needed to prove her worth, not only as a teacher but as a visionary capable of fostering personal connections through a lens of mythology. "If I can communicate it effectively, they will understand. It's not about whether they agree or like it, it's about them resonating with it." "I've seen their potential, Dad," she insisted, the passion surging stronger now. "Potential? Or wishful thinking?" He countered, challenging her intentions, quickening the pulse of conflict that shadowed them both. Her breath hitched. The tension brewed a storm of determination within her. "What if I fail?" she thought, chewing on her lip. "What if my vision doesn't inspire them?" But deep down, she knew she had come too far to backpedal now. "To be honest, I can't guarantee everyone will embrace this approach, but I believe even trying offers them a chance to grow." A noise in the background drew her attention momentarily, students expressing enthusiasm over the latest discussions, their laughter a stark contrast to the gravity of her conversation. An idea sparked within her. Why not provide them the choice? She proposed, recalling how Mia had lit up moments before. "Let us host discussions. Allow students to shape their learning. I could create an environment where they bring their own stories and connect with those ancient ones." Her father appeared caught off guard, the tension wavering as he considered this alternative. "And if they don't take it seriously? If they laugh it off?" "They might, but I must create the possibility. The moment I allow doubt to dictate my efforts, I've already lost." The resolve echoed within her as she felt her confidence drawing strength from the students. "Their success depends not just on me but on their willingness to be part of this journey. If I show them I'm serious, they might surprise us all." His gaze softened, and for a moment, she witnessed the hope that had been buried under decades of expectations. "What if we started small? Perhaps a pilot lesson plan?" "Absolutely." Sarah nearly beamed, a glimmer of approval from him felt like a lighthouse piercing through choking fog. Her heart swelled with exhilaration, an understanding blooming that she legitimately contributed to the educational landscape, yet, even amid newfound encouragement, the truth loomed. With each small victory, questions of self-identity and worthiness loomed larger. Can I lead them to find their voice? Or will I merely be echoing lessons of the past? Still, as the conversation shifted toward planning, a profound revelation ignited in her, a whisper of self-discovery amidst chaos. She realized she was not merely a teacher but an architect of transformation, a bridge between the ancient and the modern, guiding her students through turbulent waters of self-discovery. But as Sarah stepped into this newfound role, a familiar weight gripped her once more. Was her father finally seeing her as an equal partner in education? Or was he just placating her desires? With this new question hanging in the air, she looked into his eyes, searching for answers amid the depth of uncertainty. "Let us do this together," she suggested, tone resolute yet inviting. Later that day, as Sarah departed from school, her thoughts spun around her ambitions and fears, unearthing harsher truths along the way. Could she maintain her momentum? Would criticism from her father hinder or propel her forward? With every step toward the parking lot, she reminded herself prayerfully, this is just the beginning. And on the horizon of her personal odyssey, a new reflection formed what pivotal decisions awaited her as she endeavored to weave life's modern complexities into the rich tapestry of mythology. A moment of profound clarity surged through her, a prelude to the challenges that lay beyond. The journey had only just begun, and the stakes had never felt higher. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced along the pavement, Sarah fumbled with her keys, her mind racing over the day's conversations and new questions blossoming in her heart. Arriving at her small apartment, she felt the weight of the world pressing against her back, mirroring the psychological strain that accompanied her father's skepticism. The thin walls of her home bore witness to numerous moments of doubt. Tonight, they echoed more loudly than ever. She tossed her bag onto the kitchen table and slumped into a chair, staring blankly at the scattered lesson plans. A surge of resolve pierced through the fog of uncertainty. She grabbed a notebook, determined to begin mapping out her teaching strategy, one that went beyond mere rote learning. As she scribbled, the thrill of possibilities began to replace doubt, ideas unfurled like origami shapes coming to life. A semester-long exploration of mythology that directly connected to the lived experiences of her students started to take form. Could their underlying personal struggles translate into rich discussions about the ancient tales she so admired? The thought exhilarated her. With every stroke of her pen, she felt herself shifting from a passive participant in her life to a bold instigator for change. If she could harness the genuine stories of her students, she could weave a learning experience strong enough to withstand the skepticism of her father. However, as she wrote, another internal voice emerged. What if her students resisted? Confronting apathy would be a significant hurdle. Her class had often been filled with those more interested in grade inflation than insight. But didn't she owe it to herself and to them as both teacher and guide to embrace this risk? It was then when the image of Mia flitted through her mind, the spark of curiosity ignited during their last discussion, contrasting sharply against the background of her father's doubt. Focus on the possible, she muttered to herself, trying to detach from the external voices that had long haunted her decisions. The whispers of past failures crept in, but she countered them with affirmations of her competence. She had succeeded in fostering engagement before, and this could be no different. Suddenly, an idea struck her like a bolt of lightning. What if she scheduled a series of informal workshops, myths we live by? Students could lead discussions. Each could present a myth that resonated with their personal lives, drawing parallels between narratives from the ancients and contemporary struggles. It would allow their voices to surface, but more importantly, it would challenge her to ensure that every story shared was met with respect and curiosity. Enthusiastic about this new direction, Sarah grabbed her phone and texted Mia, asking if she'd be willing to help pilot this project, drawing from her peers' insights. The eager response filled Sarah with hope, a glimpse of collaboration that could transcend her own vision. Yet, even in the exhilaration of possibility, she felt the familiar tug of fear. Would her father dismiss this plan as another flight of fancy? An internal conflict waged in her between the longing to validate her role and the fear of disappointment. As she leaned back in her chair, staring at the bare walls, a realization hit her: she was forging her path. Whether her father chose to support her or not, she held the power to ignite change among her students. It became clear that this endeavor was about more than just mythology. It was about self-actualization and serving as a beacon for others. And that clarity of thought, she jotted down her final note for the evening: be brave, embrace the unknown. The phone buzzed, jolting her from contemplation. A text from Mia read, "Can we meet tomorrow to brainstorm?" This simple invitation fanned the flames of her ambition. But an even deeper anxiety intertwined within her triumph. Could she foster this openness amid the rigid traditions her father had held on to? The heart of the storm stilled for a moment, but she could feel the clouds gathering once more. In her restless mind, a thought echoed louder: was she ready for the revelation that would come from confronting her father with this new vision? As she stood, Heart racing at the prospect of the next day, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the kitchen window. Determined yet vaguely uncertain, she heard a whisper of doubt. Tomorrow is only the beginning, she reminded herself, a reminder that a pivotal decision loomed on the horizon. Could she truly convert her passion into a transformative experience for her students and herself? The moment felt electric, the potential for everything to change thick in the air. The morning light crept through the kitchen window, illuminating Sarah's determined expression as she sat for breakfast, mentally rehearsing her meeting with Mia. The familiar anxiety gripped her slightly tight, cutting through the initial thrill of ideas. How would the discussion unfold? The echoes of her father's skepticism lingered like a shadow, but now she recognized that the weight was hers to manage. An unshakable urgency pushed her forward as she scribbled down objectives for their brainstorming session. She needed more than just ideas, she needed strategies. How could she create a space where students felt worthy of their voices? And would Mia, so charismatic and open, understand the significance of what they were trying to cultivate? The clock ticked softly in the background, a reminder that time was pressing. She took a deep breath, embracing the uncertainty and the potential of the day ahead. At the cafe, she spotted Mia already seated, writing furiously in her notebook. The buzz of conversation surrounded them, creating an energetic backdrop. Soon, they were discussing how to source the myths from the students. "We need to give them ownership of this project," Sarah said, enthusiasm flooding into her voice. "Their experiences can help unlock the narratives." Mia nodded, her eyes brightening. "Exactly. And maybe we can have them bring in something personal, a story, an object, anything that connects them to the myth they choose." Sarah felt the tension in her shoulders relax. The two of them were in sync, each idea sparking new possibilities. As they brainstormed, Sarah's mind unwrapped layers of understanding about her teaching philosophy. Each suggestion they traded seemed equipped with the potential to inspire and facilitate deeper conversations about identity and culture. This isn't just about teaching myths, Sarah realized out loud. It's about understanding ourselves through these stories. Yet, as they discussed logistics and potential pitfalls, a creeping doubt unsettled her. What if the students resisted the effort? What if, instead of flourishing in the openness, they recoiled? She had witnessed passivity in the classroom before. It was a risk she needed to prepare for. "Hey, are you with me?" Mia's voice sliced through Sarah's spiral of anxiety. "You seem lost in thought." "Sorry, I've been thinking about how to handle the potential pushback," Sarah admitted, her voice a mix of vulnerability and strength. "If they don't engage, stop right there," Mia interjected gently. "You can't control their reactions, but you can create a space that feels safe and inclusive. You have to trust the process, Sarah." Mia's words struck a deep chord within her. In that moment, Sarah realized that the authority she sought did not solely come from the validity of her process, it stemmed from her willingness to confront her own fears. Her role was not just as a teacher but as a facilitator of genuine connections. That night, as she returned home, a newfound clarity filled her. The conversation with Mia had been a turning point. Her father's skepticism flashed through her mind once more, but the weight of it had shifted. This wasn't just about pleasing him, it was about breaking new ground in herself. She grabbed her notebook, developing a plan for how to frame the initial workshop. The idea of vulnerability danced through her thoughts. If she could lead by example and share her own myth, her journey as a teacher, maybe it would resonate and encourage students to do the same. The next morning held an uneasy excitement, and as she prepared for the day, a sense of purpose washed over her. Yet, as she glanced at her phone, a text from her father flashed on the screen, bringing her stomach churning back to a cold reality. "Let us talk about your plans for next semester. I'm growing concerned." With her breath caught in her chest, Sarah realized a confrontation loomed, a dance of dreams and doubts, a clash of vision and tradition. The boundaries of her personal development were about to be tested in ways that might require her to fully claim her voice. Would she stand firm in her convictions, even in light of her father's reservations? The stakes had risen, and she could almost feel the weight of the moment pressing down upon her. The unease lingered as her determination began to crystallize. This was about her dreams, her teaching, and her journey, and in that uncertainty swirled an electric anticipation. Tomorrow would not just bring a meeting, it would herald the beginning of a confrontation with both her father and herself. The day dawned gray and heavy, as if the weather itself was mirroring Sarah's inner turmoil. She gazed out the window, the distant cityscape shrouded in mist. The muted colors reminded her of her father's words, his ever-critical tone nagged at the edges of her consciousness. Was she truly ready to confront him? The discomfort settled like a weight upon her shoulders, a tangible reminder of the task ahead. As she prepared for school, her mind raced with strategies. Should she articulate her vision with confidence, or tread lightly, giving ground to ease his concerns? The dichotomy of her instincts churned within her. This wasn't merely about defending her choices but asserting her authority over her passion. Could she articulate the deeper intent of the workshop without faltering under his disapproval? At the faculty lounge, the clatter of chairs and muted conversations faded into background noise while Sarah clutched her notebook tightly, rehearsing her points. Each time her father's face flashed before her, a knot tightened in her stomach. She envisioned the unfolding of their discussion, each scenario spiraling into anxiety-laden abysses of self-doubt. Mia's voice came back to her, "You have to trust the process." That mantra clung to her as she redirected her focus. The workshop wasn't just about engagement, it was about a shift in the narrative, a movement from passivity to active participation. If she could lead with authenticity, perhaps her students would follow suit. With renewed determination, she mentally drafted her introductory words, strengthening her resolve. When her father finally arrived, the tension hung palpably between them. He settled across the cafe table, his look one of practiced concern. "Sarah, I want to understand your plans, but you've made some unconventional choices." "Unconventional can be refreshing," she countered, surprising herself with the firmness of her voice. "It's not just about teaching myths, it's about helping students discover the narratives in their own lives." Her father's brow furrowed slightly. "But how do you expect them to contribute meaningfully? You haven't proven this method yet." The question burrowed into her psyche. She needed to show him the inherent value in their stories, to unearth the rich potential that lay submerged within their personal experiences. "I believe that personal engagement leads to deeper learning," she replied, letting conviction infuse her words. "If students relate to myths through their own experiences, they'll be more likely to engage. It's transformative." He leaned back, appearing to contemplate her assertion, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she was beginning to articulate her vision more clearly than she realized. But then doubt crept back, thin and insidious, whispering that he might still never accept her methods. "A good teacher has to maintain discipline as well," he pressed, his voice steadier. "Without control, how can we ensure effective learning?" In that moment, she confronted her fear of his expectations. "It's not just about control. It's about connection, trust, and understanding. I want to foster an environment where all voices are valued." What was happening? Each confident declaration chipped away at the fortress of anxiety that had clandestinely wrapped around her. She felt an unfamiliar sense of power rising within her, battling against the legacy of doubt her father represented. Was she truly beginning to carve out her own identity as an educator? The conversation turned into an exploration, each point she made resonating with her newfound clarity, unveiling layers of her conviction. His skepticism remained, but now it felt less like a weight and more like a challenge, one she was willing to meet. As they parted, her father's eyes shimmered with a mix of concern and something akin to acknowledgement. "I'm still not completely on board, but I see your passion," he said slowly, her heart raced. The clash had led to a small victory, a sliver of recognition for the journey she was embarking on. But uncertainty still loomed large. Had she managed to tip the balance in her favor, or had she merely scratched the surface? That night, as she sat with her notebook, her resolve solidified. Tomorrow would bring the first workshop, and she felt a surge of anticipation building within her. But would the students embrace her vision, or would past experiences of disengagement seep into their attitudes, thwarting her efforts? With a restless spirit, Sarah closed her notebook, longing for the encounter that would either shimmer with promise or dim with rejection. The path ahead remained shrouded in mystery, and she sensed that the real journey was just beginning. Would she awaken the very narrative she was striving to connect with? The realization sent a ripple of excitement through her. Tomorrow would reveal all. The sun broke through the morning clouds, casting long shadows across the classroom as Sarah prepared for her workshop. The energy was palpable, a mixture of excitement and anxiety swirling within her. Today was the day she had been both eagerly anticipating and fearfully dreading. With each passing moment, the weight of what was about to unfold settled heavily on her shoulders. As her students filed in, their chatter filled the room, a white noise that heightened her awareness of the challenges ahead. She observed each face, a blend of curiosity and indifference, wondering which of them might resonate with her vision, and which would resist it. It was a game of psychological chess, and today she would need to play well. "Welcome everyone," she began, her voice breaking slightly as she grasped the podium. Instinctively, she grounded herself, recalling Mia's advice and reminding herself to trust in the process. Today, we're going to dive into the world of myths, but not just as stories. We're going to explore how these narratives can connect to our own lives. She watched a few students' expressions shift from boredom to intrigue, bolstered by her determination. In that moment, she felt momentarily unburdened, allowing herself to believe in her approach. They weren't mere passive receivers of knowledge, they were participants in a transformative dialogue. Dividing students into small groups, she encouraged them to share personal experiences related to the myths they would discuss. The classroom buzzed with engagement, and for a moment, Sarah felt as if the walls that confined her spirit had cracked open, allowing a flow of ideas and stories to intermingle freely, yet, lingering doubts clawed at the edges of her triumph. One student, Alex, frequently disruptive, resisted involvement. "Why should we care about these stories? They're not real," he challenged, crossing his arms defiantly. The tension pooled in the air as others turned to witness her response. She took a slow breath, channeling her earlier resolve. "What do you mean by real? Isn't it the emotions and lessons we derive from these narratives that shape our perspectives and beliefs?" Skepticism flared in his eyes, but Sarah pressed on. "Think of it this way, every myth contains truths about human nature. They reflect our fears, desires, and struggles. If we close ourselves off from understanding them, we risk losing insights that can inform our own lives." An unexpected recognition flickered in Alex's expression, and other students nodded pensively. Her heart raced. Had she struck a chord? The possibility ignited a spark of hope within her. As the discussions flowed, Sarah flowed with them, weaving her students' insights back into the fabric of the workshop. An hour later, exhaustion washed over her from the sheer effort of maintaining that connection, but she felt a shift. They had transformed the atmosphere from one of skepticism to possibility. Even as she approached the concluding segment of the workshop, she felt a palpable shift of mood. "Remember, each of you holds a story," she concluded. "Your lived experiences can add layers and depth to these ancient myths. In the end, it's about interpretation, how you choose to weave your truths with those of the past." As students packed their things, Sarah's exhilaration dissolved into uncertainty. Had she reached them? Alex lingered behind, catching her off guard. "I guess I didn't think it that way. It's kinda interesting. Thanks." For him, that acknowledgement felt like a victory. With each moment of connection, Sarah felt her identity as an educator becoming more defined. The journey hadn't been easy, but with every challenge, she learned more about her capabilities. Yet, as she collected her notes, she understood that today was only a beginning. The path forward promised more obstacles. Would she continue to nurture the momentum she had built, or would the tides of doubt pull her back? Stepping into the hallway, the echo of her workshop still resonating, Sarah sensed a familiar weight returning. Tomorrow would bring more students, more challenges, and perhaps even more questions to confront. But today she had ignited a flame. Would she be able to keep that flame alive amid the shadows of doubt that threatened to overwhelm her? The prospect was daunting, but she wasn't ready to back down. The real test of her conviction was only starting, and as she gazed out into the bustling school corridors, her heart quickened once more at the thought of facing whatever came next. As the sun began its descent, casting a golden hue across the classroom walls, Sarah prepared for the second workshop. The energy the day before lingered, encouraging her, but it was tinged with an undercurrent of doubt that whispered reminders of past struggles. Would her ideas connect again? Today, she had chosen a different approach, one that could either deepen her connection with the students or leave her vulnerable to criticism. She took a moment to steady herself. Today, we're going to focus on the myths surrounding the night goddess, NYX, and how these stories can reflect our own hidden fears and ambitions, she announced, trying to channel the confidence she briefly felt the day before. As she glanced around the room, the same faces stared back, some lit with curiosity, others still clouded by skepticism. She initiated a discussion about what the night meant to each student, a canvas inviting diverse interpretations. But as the conversation began to flow, her anxieties crept back in. The classroom felt like a pressure cooker, and she sensed Alex's presence like a shadow, potentially disruptive yet unpredictable in his contribution. Why is it always about night goddesses? They don't even matter, he interjected abruptly, arms crossed, scanning the room for allies. Sarah gritted her teeth but held her ground. His resistance was a reminder of the challenges ahead. Alex, what does night mean to you personally? What do your fears or ambitions look like when darkness falls? The question hung in the air, striking a chord that reverberated among the students. She watched as Alex's facade faltered, a flicker of contemplation emerging behind his defiance. The room shifted from a battleground to a sanctuary of shared vulnerabilities. Fine, he responded, a hint of defensiveness still in his tone. Maybe it's when I feel like the world is closing in. It's less about gods and more about losing control. Her heart leaped at the openness in his admission, a gateway for other students to reflect on their own battles. She encouraged the rest of the class to share. Fragmented stories emerged, insecurities about exams, fears of family expectations, the pressure to fit in. The air vibrated with newfound honesty. Sarah felt invigorated as she guided the conversation, each word strengthening her sense of purpose as an educator. This wasn't just about teaching, it was about facilitating a space where young minds could wrestle with their truths, much like the gods they studied. As the hour waned, she shared insights from ancient texts that wove through their discussions, anchoring their experiences in rich narrative depths. Each myth offers us not just a story, but a mirror to glimpse our own complexities. The night may cloud our path, but it is where we confront our deepest selves, she said, embracing the palpable shift in energy. When the workshop concluded, she felt a sense of accomplishment swell within her. This time, when the students packed their bags, a genuine buzz of conversation filled the room. Her gaze landed on Alex. You know, he said with a thoughtful frown, maybe there is something to these myths after all. They kind of help explain what I'm feeling sometimes. In that moment, Sarah sensed a profound victory well beyond the day's curriculum. Embracing vulnerability had not just changed her students, it had transformed her approach to teaching itself. Yet, as she packed up, the thrill of the day faded into the familiar weight of impending self-doubt. She questioned if she could maintain this momentum. Would tomorrow's discussions bear the same fruit? As she stepped out of the classroom, she felt that intrinsic tug of doubt encroach again. She was on the brink of a breakthrough but faced an unsettling truth: each small victory could just as easily turn to setbacks. The shadows of her insecurities loomed, reminding her that the road ahead was fraught with challenges yet to be faced. With a deep breath, Sarah resolved to embrace the uncertainty, knowing that sometimes, the most profound growth occurs in the darkest hours. Each moment would bring its own tests, but whatever lay ahead, she intended to confront it with the same bravery that had illuminated her workshops. And just then, a new thought crept into her mind: what would happen when she was pushed to her limits, when one of her students truly challenged her teachings and their implications? Would she be ready to defend the very foundation upon which she had built her approach? The prospect sent a shiver down her spine, igniting both fear and a fierce determination within her. She wasn't merely shaping a classroom, she was forging her identity in the fires of conflict that lay just over the horizon. In the dim morning light filtering through her classroom windows, Sarah faced the day with renewed determination. The echoes of her recent workshops resonated in her mind, reminding her of the connections she'd forged, connections that were not just educational but deeply personal. Students like Alex had revealed the transformative power of storytelling, illuminating their struggles and fears through the lens of mythology. Yet amid her achievements, uncertainty still loomed. Today marked the first evaluation of her new curriculum by the school board. As the students filed in, a mix of excitement and anxiety bubbled within her. Would they grasp the significance of their shared stories? Would they articulate their thoughts with the same candor they had in previous discussions? The chatter among the students felt different today, charged with an anticipation that mirrored her own. "Okay, everyone," she called out, striving for an upbeat tone that masked her nerves. "Today, we're going to review everything we've learned about myths and our own narratives. I want you to think about how these stories relate to you personally, and we'll be presenting our insights to a few guests." The mention of the guests sent a ripple of apprehensive excitement through the room. The school board members had been invited to witness firsthand the impact of her new teaching approach. As she guided them through a series of reflective exercises, she felt the atmosphere shift. The students, initially uncertain, began to embrace the challenge. Mia passionately recounted her thoughts on NYX, intertwining her own experiences with the goddess's fight against societal expectations. Their peers listened intently, nodding in recognition, but then Alex stood up, his gaze earnest yet vulnerable. "What if someone doesn't want to share their story? Like, what if it's too personal?" The question hung heavily in the air. Anxiety twisted inside Sarah. The vulnerability embedded in their approach could not only empower but also alienate. She took a moment before answering, forming a bridge between fear and courage. "It's completely okay to feel that way, Alex. Remember, sharing is a choice, not an obligation. Your journey is yours to dictate. But if you ever feel ready, we're here to support you because everyone's story has value." His expression softened, and the unspoken understanding forged a bond between them. As the workshop continued, the students engaged fervently, intertwining their lives with the myths they discussed. By the time the board members arrived, Sarah could feel the electric energy filling the room. They settled in, and she watched her students come alive, articulating their thoughts with passion. Each presentation echoed her conviction: mythology matters because it is the foundation on which they could build their identities. When the presentations concluded, Sarah felt a swell of pride. The board members, visibly impressed, exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Recognition bubbled in the atmosphere. "Your students demonstrated exceptional understanding and engagement with the material," one board member finally said, breaking the silence. "It's clear the approach resonates with them." As she faced them, the tension that had clutched her heart for weeks dissipated. The journey she had undertaken through self-doubt, familial expectations, and the shadows of her fears had forged a new identity. She was not just a teacher confined by conventional standards, she was an innovator weaving personal stories with educational rigor. When the meeting adjourned, as the board members expressed their approval, Sarah sensed the weight of expectations slip away. They validated her vision, and she steadied herself, judgment tempered by determination. That evening, a flood of messages lit up her phone. Cheers from students praising their own transformations poured in. They spoke of feeling heard, understood, and recognized. In the warmth of their feedback, she felt a huge weight lift, a culmination of courage, creativity, and the essence of myth itself. Later, as she navigated home through the bustling streets, Sarah embraced the calm that followed chaos. Overcoming her fears and proving her worth felt undeniably fulfilling. She had transformed not only her classroom but herself. She envisioned the future students finding empowerment through their narratives, their identities enriched, deeply rooted in the timeless stories they had explored together. Determined to chart her course further, Sarah envisioned future workshop themes, new perspectives to uncover, and ways to reach even more students. Beyond the confines of this moment, her journey as an educator was alive and vibrant. As she stepped onto her doorstep, gratitude surged through her. She paused and whispered a quiet promise. This is only the beginning, a testament to her newfound conviction and the boundless potential that lay ahead. It was clear she would no longer echo shadows of doubt, but illuminate the path for herself and others. Now is the time to take a stand. If you want to dive deeper into tales of personal growth and transformation, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will empower your journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these transformative stories reaching those who need them most. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey toward fulfilling her true potential. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.